A very good morning and a warm welcome to all of you for joining us today for this Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation webinar, which is dedicated to the alumni of our Innovation Fund. So I want to welcome all of our alumni who are joining us today. I know more are going to join as we're talking through these welcome notes. And I also want to give a warm welcome to all of our presenters who are kindly giving their time and their contributions today. Before I get started with the welcome notes and housekeeping notes, I just want to guide you all to a LinkedIn link that I have posted in the chat, because we really want all of our alumni to join this LinkedIn group that we have built and dedicated to staying in touch and sharing with you the latest, newest funding rounds that are up and active and open for you to apply to. So we are trying to make this more of a lively area of our information sharing. So I encourage everyone to join the LinkedIn group today, and I will approve you as admin of that group shortly. Another housekeeping note to share is that we are recording this event. The idea is that any alumni who are not able to join us live will be able to watch the recording back. We will post the recording link in the LinkedIn group, and we will also post it to our secure YouTube channel as well. And I will share the link to that through email in addition. So today is our third webinar for our alumni community. And the purpose of these webinars are to share information, lessons learned, particularly from alumni who are sharing their journey and their post-grant experiences. And we're also trying to foster a sense of community between ourselves as alumni of this Innovation Fund. And we're very keen to hear if you make a new connection or even collaborate with anyone who you link up with as a result of this webinar. So we fully encourage you to get involved and to share any questions that you have in the chat. So during the course of the webinar, please feel free to write down any questions. And we have 10 minutes at the end of the webinar where we will field questions to each of the relevant presenters. As usual, we have three presentations today. One from an alumnus, that is Altec, and we are also hearing from VMO, and we have a fantastic presentation about the Kanua toolkit that has been developed by GSMA and its partners as well. So please do feel free to introduce yourself to everyone else on the call by writing in the chat. And I will now hand over to the lovely Salam and Rahila, who are joining us from VMO today. So Salam Shebly is a partnerships and digital innovation builder with 12 years of experience in international cooperation and human rights, with a special focus on ICT for development and digital rights in the MENA region. Salam leads MENA programs as part of her role as the Regional Partnerships Manager with VMO, a global social enterprise working on enhanced access to information among the most vulnerable using mobile and tech solutions. Salam holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer and Systems Engineering, a diploma in Leadership and Project Management, and is a certified Project and Financial Management professional by APMG International. And she is joined by her colleague Rahila. And Rahila is an experienced professional with a background in global social impact and has successfully transitioned into the world of ICT for development and mobile technology solutions. With 2 decades of experience in the social impact sector, Rahila has developed expertise in strategy development, social impact measurement, evidence and research synthesis, and operational management of large and complex programs. Currently, Rahila is the Regional Director for Asia and MENA at VMO, which is a social enterprise improving lives via mobile. And in addition to her work in the social impact sector, Rahila has extensive experience in senior management roles within complex humanitarian, transitional, and insecure environments, specifically in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. So that's absolutely wonderful. we're delighted for you both to join us here today, and I'll now hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for the kind introduction and invitation to be part of this webinar. Pleasure to be here with everyone and to present, and we're looking forward to present our work and also learn more about the other presentations that will be here today. Can you please confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. So to kick this off, basically we are here today to talk about Viamo's work in the sphere of humanitarian innovation. And we have some specific examples from some of our work in Afghanistan that my colleague Rahila will be presenting shortly. But before we do that, we'd like to give you an idea about what we do in Viamo globally as a start, and then we kick off with the example. We at Viamo, we are a global social enterprise. We're working in more than 35 countries around the world, spanning from Africa to Asia, including MENA, to Latin America and the Caribbean. What we do is that we are a medium of communication that connects organizations with underconnected populations, where we believe that everybody has the right to have access to information regardless of their connectivity and their digital literacy, using different types of technology that are available in the contexts and in the countries where we are working. Our persona, OZ, is a woman or a man or a child, someone who is not online, someone who is isolated, who lacks access to on-demand information, products and services, and the humanitarian actors are struggling and finding many difficulties in engaging with people like Ozi. And when, for example, Ozi's child is sick, she cannot get information on how to deal with the situation, nor the farmer who needs to get more information about the weather, nor the shopkeeper who wants to know more information about the available resources and opportunities to take a loan and grow their business, and nor the community health volunteer who needs help diagnosing a patient. And that's why we basically want to state the fact that we need to keep on reminding ourselves that there are still more than 3.7 billion underconnected people in the world, and that we are far away from achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, especially with the fast-paced round of technologies that we are hearing about all the time. But the digital divide is still there, especially for people like Ozi, that we need to continue keeping in mind in order for us to leave no one behind. We know that the world is moving quickly, but in order for us to reach a full participation in the digital economy, we need people to have new devices like smartphones, tablets, laptops. We need them to be on the internet, and being on the internet is not only a matter of money, it's also a matter of network. Sometimes, even if you have the money and the resources, the network is not reliable where you are residing, and it's the same for the electricity, where it is not accessible on daily basis and all day in all parts of the world. Literacy is another matter that we need to tackle, because not everybody is able to read and write, and also not everybody is able to deal with all the technological gadgets that are improving on a fast pace, on and on. And then for the content, because the content that we have on the internet on the different technological platforms is vast, but we don't have targeted content for the people in addition to the skills. And that's why we at Viamo basically use the available technologies that suit the literacy and the connectivity of people like Ozi, in order for us not to forget and to leave Ozi behind. Those technologies range from IVR, which is the interactive voice response, SMS, USSD, chatbots on social media like WhatsApp and like Facebook. using those technologies, we are able to provide humanitarian actors with digital advisory to know exactly what is suitable in order for them to better achieve their objectives. Our work is based on the social behavioral change communications and the human-centered design. So it's not only about the development of the technology itself, but also making sure that this technology is usable and is relevant to the targeted audiences we are working with. Our work includes creating a medium for data collection and feedback mechanisms, because accountability is a main priority for humanitarian actors and for us, and we need to create and continue to create those mediums. And then if we want to put our services into three categories, we would be doing and supporting the humanitarian actors in doing digital training, digital campaigns, and digital surveys. But of course, all of this is high level what we do. We can definitely provide further information if it is needed by the alumni. And now, to give you a more in-depth look, I will hand over to Rahila to walk us through an example from Afghanistan. Over to you, Rahila.
Thanks, Salam, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're calling in from. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about some of the work that VIAMO is doing in Afghanistan. But just before I dive in, just wanted to build some context. Many of you will be familiar with the sort of the decades-long humanitarian crisis that Afghanistan does find itself in. Drawing very specifically on the events that took place on August 15th, 2021, that really marked a seminal moment in Afghanistan's long history of conflict and crisis. Essentially, on that day, with the US forces evacuating out of Afghanistan after 2 decades of conflict, there was the Taliban takeover, which really unleashed a downward spiral of the country and in an internal collapse in terms of governance, accountability, and democracy. What really followed was, social catastrophe, and women have really bared the large brunt of, what took place in the years that have preceded and to this very moment. As many of you already are aware, Afghanistan is an extremely poor landlocked country, and it's highly dependent on foreign aid for its survival. We know that with the de facto government now in place, the dependency on foreign aid has increased manyfold. Essentially, we know that from our, I'm going to be talking about a project that we're doing with UNDP, and I thought I'd sort of provide some images of latest reports from UNDP. And as recent as April 23, we know that more than 3/4 of the Afghan population are borrowing food or money to buy food, and the remainder of any amount of money that they may have left over goes on to essential healthcare and tertiary basic needs. Moving on, what does the telecom sector look like? And of course, this is of key interest to this audience. Essentially, we know from the Afghan Telecom Authority itself that there are just over 27 million mobile phone subscribers across the major MNOs. AWCC, Roshan, Etisalat, and MTN are sort of the major players in the telecom space. So that sort of 27 million accounts for just almost 70% of the total population. You only need to dig a little bit deeper to really then understand the type of mobile connectivity that this population have. Only about 14% of those who have access to mobiles have a smartphone. And so the vast majority of mobile phone subscribers and mobile phone owners are reliant on simple mobile phones, IVR-based services, and largely, audio connectivity to make, receive calls and access information. You can see some stats here. VIAMO's exclusive MNO partnership is with Roshan, and Roshan represents about 60% of the subscriber base. If we move on and let's really talk about, well, what does what does a gendered lens on women's connectivity, women's use of mobile in Afghanistan look like? We know that around the world, the digital divide between men and women is vast. It is only further exacerbated in a context like Afghanistan, and the situation of the last couple of years has further compounded women's access to mobile-based information and services. So running through some of women's specific telecom challenges: ownership. Not specific to Afghanistan, we see this in many contexts around the world, but where women within a household do own a mobile phone, it is understood to be a household asset, and it is by and large under the ownership of the male head of the household. So therefore, that shared device, that shared asset, is not the sole ownership of women. That being the case, we also know very well that there is a problem with content. The large amount of content is not specifically created for women in languages that they understand, further compounding women's access to information. Cost being another driver, and again, not specific to Afghanistan, but given that approximately 50% of the Afghan population live below the poverty line, the cost is prohibitive in terms of ownership and running and maintaining a mobile phone and a connection. Again, control and access, and this kind of gives us a bit more of a zoomed out view. There are very specific controls around the type of content that can be shared, further compounding women's position in terms of access to a wide range of information. And then literacy, where we know very broadly that both men and women have low levels of literacy in Afghanistan. The stats are quite stark in that only about 8% of women in Afghanistan can read a whole sentence, which really enables VIAMO to think about how information is disseminated to women based on audio, largely IVR. So with that being sort of the bigger picture, I wanted to draw upon just one specific example of our work with UNDP in really understanding how women can be accessed, how women can continue to run businesses, think about starting home-based businesses, because of course women's ability to access local economy, local markets is very restrictive, and so very much restricted to the household. However, you know, there are obviously huge amounts of humanitarian aid which is in support of women being part of the productive workforce in Afghanistan, albeit in a very reduced capacity. So essentially, UNDP wanted to approach VIAMO and wanted to kind of come up with creative ways of women to access information via their mobile phones. And so we created training content specifically on business skills and entrepreneurship that really could be accessed from the comfort of women's homes through a simple handheld device, so a simple phone. Essentially using an HCD approach, VIAMO embarked upon a large-scale research and needs assessment by focusing on women in 3 areas in the western region of Afghanistan: Herat, Baghdis, and Farah. And VIAMO developed a dedicated audio hotline. Essentially, it can be sort of understood as an audio library on IVR technology. And this hotline both had push and pull modalities on it, in that training content could be pushed out to women at specific times when we knew that women would have access to their phones, as well as women could call in and access this content on demand, on their convenience, as and when they could listen in to this content. It was available through all network providers. And so we ensured that all women, regardless of whichever subscriber they were affiliated to, could access this information. And we spent a lot of time and effort really building quite thorough feedback mechanisms to monitor engagement on a real-time basis. I'm going to show you a few of the sort of the data that we collected in the stats that we were able to gather for UNDP. Firstly, just a broad overview looking at the demographics. We know that by and large, the majority of the participants who were targeted by this program were less than 35 years old, and this shows you that breakdown in terms of their education. If we just move on, that of the that we only had about 35% of those women who had participated, and that was almost 200 participants, had completed schooling, and only about 34% had attended school. So 19% had gone on to complete undergraduate studies, and 10% had reported never having attended school whatsoever.
Last minute, please, Rahila. Thank you so much.
All right. Apologies. So let me just quickly skip over the next two slides. This kind of just gives you some indication of the breakdown of aspiring entrepreneurs as well as businesswomen. Yes, if we just go to that last slide. So just in summary, over 90% of women reported that accessing information through this means, through their mobile phones, it was accessible, it provided them flexibility, and there was an ease at which they could be trained. The majority of women found the content to be useful, relevant, and interactive, as well as engaging. And over 80% of the participants reported feeling empowered as a result of going through the entire curriculum of the training, and wanted to improve their businesses after participating in the training. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to both of you for such a fantastic and very insightful presentation. Lots of questions myself coming out of your presentation, so I'm sure we will have a good lively Q&A. So I want to say welcome to anyone who joined the webinar during the course of that last presentation. Just to remind you, if you have any questions that you want to ask any of our presenters, please type it in the chat. We'll be having a Q&A at the end of this event. But without much further ado, I would like to introduce our second presenter of the webinar, and this is Washikala Malango. Washikala is a social entrepreneur and development specialist, and as co-founder and CEO of the Alternative Energy Technologies Distribution Company, fondly called ALTEC, he designs and implements business models which close the clean energy distribution gap in the Democratic Republic of Congo, while also addressing energy needs of the country's off-grid and under-electrified populations and institutions. Washikala holds a master's degree in development studies from the University of Dar es Salaam, and he has also completed the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And Washikala, it is our pleasure to have you here speaking with us today. So I'll now hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny, for this opportunity and organizing this meeting. As I said, my name is Washikala Malango. I am co-founder and CEO of ALTEC Group. ALTEC Group is a social enterprise, clean energy and transportation, a sustainable transportation company that has been operating in the DRC for almost a decade now. We started very small in Eastern Congo, and we grew the company and across the DRC, and we currently have operations in 23 provinces out of the 26. We have been working to achieve a very big vision, which is to eradicate energy poverty in the country. We know, you might know that the DRC is one of the biggest energy access markets in Africa. Just to give you a little bit of numbers, less than 20% of the DRC population has access to electricity. And we are talking a country of almost 100 million people now, and the population has been growing fast. Since we started, we really knew that we will have to build a company that will operate across the country and be able to reach as many people as possible. So yeah, as I said, we have been involved in building one of the largest, most profitable and impactful paygo companies in the DRC. But definitely, this is easier said than done. As we started, we knew that in order for us to do that reliably and sustainably, we had to to have some of the principles that will guide us on throughout this journey. And we spent a lot of time thinking about what are the business principles and that will guide us, and we came up with 5. These 5 principles that guide us up to today are, best product offerings, best customer service, healthiest portfolio, highest revenues, and highest profit margins. I will spend the next couple of minutes explaining each one of these, starting with best product offerings. As you might know, the clean energy or off-grid energy industry is awash with different product offers. There are most of these products what we say are quality verified. This is already a good thing, but at Altec we realized, based on our early experiences, that it's not every product that is quality verified that is really which really have good quality. So we right from the start we wanted to go beyond just simple quality verification that is done by international organization, and we asked ourselves the question: what does quality mean in the eyes of our customers? So because definitely in terms of the verification procedures that are in place, you would see products are being verified based on, for instance, the number of hours that the number of hours that they can run. But this has been mostly based on professionals, understanding ideas. But when it comes to the customers, they might definitely have a different idea about how many hours, for instance, they want. So we really placed those kind of customer insights into building the products, and we really had a range of products that we believe that are very that customer love, and the customer they can really appreciate. So we have been very very serious about the kind of suppliers, for instance, that we work with. Our selection procedure in terms of suppliers is very rigid, and this has enabled us to provide some of the best product offerings that are in the industry. The second one is best customer service. This is very important for us because the product that we offer has a lot of items. If you look, for instance, at a solar home system, this is a product that is, is comprised by different items, different elements. You have the solar panel, you have, for instance, the battery, we have bulbs, we have radio, we have TV, and so on. And all of these items that compose the kit have different issues. So we kind of understood that from the beginning, and we really developed a network of a network of service centers that allows us to not only respond fast to our customers, but also provide repairs anytime that our customers need. And this has been one of the things that has helped us in order to keep our reputation, our good reputation in our customer base, but also have create sort of loyalty to our customers. The third principle is healthier portfolio. Again, we understood that we have to get customers, definitely, and in the industry, people always talk about sales. How many product have you sold? How many customers have you reached? But it's important to have sales. It's important to reach as many customers as possible. But definitely, our business is selling products on credit, and definitely we have to be able to to collect the payment from customers and be able to pay, for instance, our debts and other responsibilities as obligations that we have. So we really understood that, and we have decided to put in place procedures for selecting the customers that we work with, but also like building relations that are based on trust. But again, the first 2 points that I said, I mentioned product quality, but also customer service. If you make sure that the quality of the product is good, the product is performing very well, and this is accompanied by a service that is fast and and that works well. Definitely, we create customers that are happy, and that are also happy, and definitely are able to pay you whenever you want them to pay. So this is very important, and we have seen that it has helped us to have to build one of the healthiest portfolio in the industry. The fourth point is highest revenues. So definitely the DRC market is huge, and we knew that we had to scale and grow our business in order to grow our revenues. But another important element is that we have been able to diverse our product offerings in order to make sure that we are reaching as many customer segments as possible. We have been also in the process of introducing new products, new services to our existing customers, and this all, ensures that we have, the highest revenues in the market, and we keep reaching as many customers as possible. And the last one, but not least, is highest profit margins. Yes, so definitely we knew the market that we operate in does not have a huge reputation of attracting, investment because of the history that it has, and of civil wars and conflicts. And we knew that for us to operate a business sustainably, we need to be able to make profit so that we can attract the needed funding or investment that will enable us to reach, to operate across the DRC. So we have been very keen in terms of making sure that our operations stay lean. And we have been also very good in terms of, discussing the network of suppliers that we have built, so that we can be able to access products on very competitive, prices. All of this has allowed us to, to operate on, profitably and have some of the highest profit margins in the industry. And this has led to us building a really reliable and sustainable business. So these are some of the business principles that we follow and that enables us to do what we do and at scale, and and that enables us to reach as many customers as possible. Ever since we started, we have been able to sell hundreds, almost 500 solar products, across the DRC. We estimate that our product have impacted about 2 million people in the country. We have created thousands of jobs, especially for young people and women. Actually, we're operating a network of almost 5,000 sales agents across the DRC, and almost half of those are women. But again, we are, as I said, in the beginning we have introduced multiple services and products. Now we have, since 2022, we have been piloting e-mobility in five cities in the DRC, including Goma, where I am now. And we hope to start scaling that business by the end of this year. So that's it. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Washikala. That was an excellent presentation and so fascinating to learn more about Altec. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, so now we're on to our third and final presentation of this webinar, which is a presentation of the Conua Toolkit, and Matthew and Margot are joining us to present it, and I will just introduce them now before they get cracking. So Matthew Downer joined the GSMA as a Senior Insights Manager for the Mobile for Humanitarian Innovation Programme in 2018. In his role, he researches the use of mobile technology by crisis-affected people and for the delivery of humanitarian assistance, and uses this evidence to advocate for safe and dignified digitization in the sector. Matthew's research has looked at digital and financial inclusion for crisis-affected people, extending and upgrading connectivity to fragile settings, and also partnerships between humanitarians and the private sector. And he is joined by Margot Fortin. She has worked at Impact Reach Initiative for more than 6 years, with experience across several different country missions. Throughout this time, she has had a continued focus on research and assessments related to accountability to affected populations. Since 2022, she has joined headquarters in Geneva, heading up the Accountability and Inclusion Unit. And in this role, she is also the focal point of the relationship with GSMA, which is fantastic. So I'll now hand over to you both for your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. I'll do a very quick introduction, and then Margot is going to do the very start of the presentation. But as a very quick background, we're going to run you through today our what we call the Conua Toolkit, the Humanitarian Connectivity Needs and Usage Assessment. We, the GSMA, have been working very closely with Margot and the team at Reach for about 3 years now on this piece, where what we're presenting today is a revised version. Importantly, it's supported by our donor FCDO, as well as endorsed by and supported by the Emergency Telecommunications Cluster as an official tool there. So yeah, I will make a start. Margot is going to do the first couple of slides.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew, and hi, everyone. Thanks a lot to the other presenters as well. I'm learning a lot. Before Matthew dives into more of the practical applications of the Connectivity Needs and Usage Toolkit, I thought it would be good to say a few words on why the toolkit is important, why I myself, even though I actually wasn't involved in the actual development of the toolkit, believe that it's one of those toolkits that should be used much more at scale essential in humanitarian responses. To state the obvious, we know that mobile technologies have been around for decades, that we're quite behind as a sector, and that mobile technologies hold quite an unexplored potential to help deepen and expand community engagement activities, outreach activities, enable participation, and as well as to make programming more efficient and user-friendly. And we've heard really good examples from the VMO colleagues earlier. In spite of knowing all of that, our teams together have identified a major gap in terms of up-to-date evidence on connectivity, on preferences and usage of mobile technologies in the various contexts where humanitarian responses operate. This type of data is sometimes considered to be something that would be nice to have, but that probably isn't essential. This often leads then to programs or engagement strategies that are based on broad assumptions that we make in contexts that we don't know very well, often ranging from sometimes an assumption that no one is using mobile technology, so why bother? Which we often find in sub-Saharan African countries where mobile penetration is higher than a lot of people realize, or we have the opposite assumption in other places that everyone is using Telegram or WhatsApp. The early stages of the Ukraine response was a good example of that. When you start unpacking these examples with even basic evidence that's available, you quickly find that the assumptions are misleading sometimes, and as much as certain digital applications can be quite visible in a given response, their use can be quite significantly segmented on the basis of age, gender, or disability and other factors. We also make assumptions sometimes that where there is connectivity and where there is existing usage, then there is feasibility for all the wonderful ideas that we have in terms of how to leverage mobile technologies for better humanitarian action. But that's not always the case. And just because something in theory could work doesn't mean that this is how communities want to be engaged. So the toolkit that we present here enables as well more of a user-centered design where we look to offer people what they want, not what we think they should want, which is often what happens. Next slide, please. All right, so just quickly, for me, the Konua toolkit is meant to inform actors on all of these dimensions that I've mentioned and allow them to make informed decisions regarding the best ways to go about engaging communities, enabling participation, and improving programs. It allows us to look into unlocking some of the potential of these tools, but in full awareness as well of who it will reach and who it will leave out, so that you reach who you're able to reach with those technologies, but you also ensure that you've planned an alternative for all of those people that you're going to be unable to reach. And this is where having good, up-to-date data is quite critical, especially on this aspect of leaving no one behind. And then finally, the use of the toolkit, I think, has a lot of potential in terms of enabling cross-context comparisons on needs, usage, and preferences, and therefore to inform global strategies on digital transformation, digital inclusion in the humanitarian sector. I know we're quite pressed with time, so I'm going to hand things back to Matthew to walk us through how the toolkit actually works. Over to you, Matthew.
Thanks, Margot. So yeah, as Margot says, we're going to give a bit of a whistle-stop tour on the toolkit itself. Probably quite high level, but we're always very happy to pick up the conversations offline. I will provide a link at the end, but everything that we're sharing today is available on the Konua's dedicated microsite with recently updated resources that you can see some screenshots on our page. And just in case I forget, just to let everyone know, the resources themselves are available, as in the guides are available in English, French and Spanish, and the tools are additionally available in Arabic and Swahili. So we're currently working on making them accessible, and we intend to expand the languages available as we go on. So in terms of the toolkit itself, it's a set of 8 tools which are designed to help people address specific questions. And I'll run through in a second what these 8 tools are at a very high level again. But just I want to say now the toolkit itself is designed to be incredibly modular, adaptable. So you can take some of these tools and put them into existing research and assessments. You can run a dedicated assessment just using these tools, although we probably wouldn't say all 8 at the same time, as that's quite a resource-heavy exercise. Or you can somehow find a middle ground to take a whole tool and put it into a broader piece of research. All with the idea in mind that we're looking at understanding how people currently access and use mobile technology and the barriers they face and their ongoing desires for it, although not replacing other assessments such as information needs, which is quite distinct, but I'll touch on that at the end. So the first 3 tools that we have in the toolkit are what we call the end user facing tools. So these are probably what people will most recognize as your standard assessment approach. So we've got an individual level survey, which is pre-coded for Kobo, available in the languages that we mentioned, and it provides suggested questions for kind of every aspect of digital access and digital financial access that we have come across. And we work very closely with the Reach team to do what we call cognitive testing here. So working on understanding what users think they're being asked so that we can be quite confident that the responses they give are what we think the responses they're giving. Some surveys we end up finding that the question that was asked is not interpreted in the way we would imagine. And this survey it's a very big tool. So again, if you were to take it forward, we always suggest cutting out what you don't need and focusing really in on where your questions are. We've got 5 focus group discussion exercises, again, available in all of the 5 languages that tools come in, that kind of cover all the similar areas of the survey, but we flesh this out with qualitative data. And then in a third qualitative tool, which we call the exercises, which is a number of things. So helping to understand practical digital literacy, so asking people to kind of show you how they would achieve something on their phone, to understand whether people are using the tools you think they are, or if they've got their own workarounds. We also do what we call participative mapping. So if you've got a fixed location, you want to understand how people use the space. So you can ask them to map where they think the best connectivity is, to map where the nearest charging station to their house is, to map which of the agents they like best, or if there's any areas they don't like going to access connectivity services. All of this can help you to understand the ways in which people are living their lives and accessing services. The second set of tools that we have, what we call the merchant-facing tools, and anyone who's worked in the digital space for a while will understand that the mobile agents, mobile energy agents, kind of your point of sales that exist in these last mile locations are incredibly important for ensuring that the marketplace is really fully functioning. And so with this in mind, we've developed 3 tools that we speak specifically to merchants. And by merchant, we mean that, as you see bottom here, anyone who is offering commercial services within the space. So sellers, shopkeepers, network representatives, scratch card resellers, mobile money agents. And oftentimes these people are also small shop owners. They're also agents for an energy company or for a bank. And so these people are often a key touch point. We've got a quantitative survey. So if you want to speak to lots of people and you want to really build out that data, do it that way. We've got qualitative interview guides. We've also got merchant mapping. So this is where, again, if you've got a finite area that you're working within, a very specified area, you map which agents are where. And if you overlay this with the participative mapping with users, you get an interesting idea of the kind of the hotspots for where people go. The survey looks at the kinds of services people are providing, but I think quite importantly, understanding the challenges that agents themselves face, and then importantly as well, the challenges of customers that agents are commonly helping. We know that agents are often an informal but really important tool for people to overcome their challenges that they're facing. So how do I charge my phone? How do I change my SIM card? How do I access this service? How do I top up or cash out? These kind of things are all stuff that people will often go to the agents as the first port of call. And so good to understand the challenges within a community based on those that are presenting to agents. And then the last 2 tools are what we call the ecosystem tools. So what we call the market assessment is actually just our suggested approach to a desk-based guide, understanding the information that's already available in the market. And so this is both looking out for other assessments that have been done, because we know that crisis-affected people are amongst the most researched. And so if we can avoid going in to ask more questions of people that they've already been asked, that's always helpful. But also understanding how can we understand the products that are available, the price points, what's the policy environment in terms of, for example, refugees accessing SIM cards. All these things that we would want to know before we do our assessment. It's a kind of how-to guide on that. And then the last tool is the signal strength mapping. So this is baked into Kobo, and it's a way from which enumerator teams can record not just whether or not signal was available, like does the phone show that there are bars, but also can you physically send a text message, can you physically make a phone call, can you physically stream a video, so you can understand in specific locations what the actual reality of a signal strength means, because we know sometimes even within theoretical coverage areas, people may not be able to access a website, and therefore perhaps your WhatsApp chatbot is not going to be the most appropriate tool in that location. And so it's around overlaying this information to help make decisions. So what does deploying the toolkit look like? And so we've got a few examples here of hypotheticals, and I've shown one example in real terms as well. So when we put the tool together with the Reach team, we kind of came up with these 4 key areas that we think the toolkit is most likely to be used for. One, the kind of obvious one, a broad assessment of mobile phone usage. And that's where we say pretty much every tool is important. If you really just want to understand the lay of the land, the lay of the digital landscape. Often people are thinking about how digital technology can be used for communicating with end users. For example, a partner of ours used it in the Philippines to assess whether or not an SMS early warning system for floods would be suitable, in which case you would really pull out just the communication aspects of the tools. Cash and voucher assistance has proved to be a really big area of it. So people wanting to understand, can I use mobile money to provide cash to the communities and people that are affected by crisis I want to? And again, we've got a lot of very specific mobile money elements in the toolkit. And then finally, kind of this catch-all, the mobile-enabled product section. So we know that there are a number of energy products. We had interesting presentation from Alltech earlier, as well as agricultural or other kind of sector-specific products that rely upon mobile technologies to function, or some of their business model. And so combining with tools related to energy, for example, you can use the tools in this toolkit to take an assessment. If we look at one example, so we've pulled out a hypothetical communicating with community scenario. So an agency wants to support the development of a learning warning system in one of the contexts where they work, and they want to assess whether mobile, either IVR or SMS in particular, is an appropriate modality. And so here we said, well, actually, there's probably only 3 tools you really need to do, because you're not so interested in the marketplace about whether people can functionally buy credit, because you don't need them to be dialing in. It's a relatively passive system. And so you want to use the end user survey to understand who in the community has a phone, who in the community has their phone turned on because they can charge, and therefore who will and won't receive those messages. You want to understand using focus groups to flesh out that data, to understand that people would trust that data source if it came, that communication source that came through. And importantly, if you were thinking of contained areas such as settlement, or with our partners, they were looking at specific river routes, so they knew exactly the geographies that would likely be affected, doing some signal strength tests to see, can actually will people receive the SMS, will people receive the voice call, to make an assessment as to whether you can do that. And so you see here why the toolkit is built out to be in a quite modular fashion. Importantly, like we said a few times, the tool has been designed to work alongside other sets of tools. We know lots already exists. So we haven't, for example, looked really in depth on communication information needs, the source of the message, the tone of the message, because other people like CDAC or Internews already have really strong tools in this area that we don't need to replace, and GSMA is an expert. And interestingly, on the cash side, ours is very much around the feasibility of mobile money. It's not looking at minimum basket sizes for your cash transfers. It's not looking at whether or not the cash can be used to buy what people need, because again, that's not where we add the value. We're very much looking at the mobile technology element in the middle. So borrowing from our tools and throwing into those other ones is probably important as you think this through. And where we're going at speed, so very happy to take questions at the end as well. And I included was one example to show you some of the kind of outputs that you get from the toolkit. So this is a piece of work that we did with the Norwegian Refugee Council in Sudan ahead of the current crisis. With displaced and affected communities, so refugees and those who host them in White Nile State, using a whole host of these tools. And with this, we were able to look at who has a phone. And so you see there that 88% of host communities and 95% of refugees had their own mobile phone, or were able to borrow one. We looked at the gaps. So in the top right, you see, for example, the refugee women are 18% less likely to own a phone than the men, and therefore there's implications on the kind of service we do. And we looked at the barriers, and so a whole host of barriers there, largely cost. We also saw identity. We saw not like digital skills and limited connectivity. And importantly, we always encourage people to ask about charging. Again, speaking to the important presentation from Alltech earlier, because charging, if you can't charge your phone, then it's almost impossible to use, and understanding how much it costs. So you'll see that stat beneath the charging point. We use focus groups to understand how much the charging points we're charging how much it costs to charge your phone at a charging point. With my final minute, I just want to say we've recently published a brand new microsite that has everything on it, including everywhere it's being deployed and links to the report. So that Sudan one and a number of others are available. All the tools, all the resources, some guides, as well as a contact us box. And importantly, both GSMA and Reach have some resource to help partners deploy the toolkit. So if you're considering using it, please do reach out and we'd be happy to talk, and you can find everything on that link. And I'm done.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you both so much. I mean, for me, I now have a much better understanding of the toolkit, and I really liked the examples, the application that you shared at the end for Sudan, and my thoughts were running on, on how this can be deployed and how successes of the use of the toolkit can be captured. So we don't have any questions in the chat just yet. I'll give people some time to type out their burning questions, but I'll take advantage of my role as chair by asking you the first question. So I was curious, this is such a great set of resources and toolkit, and obviously has potential to achieve a great deal and actually help inform some amazing initiatives. How will you capture use of the toolkit and those successful use cases?
Yeah, good question. So at the moment on the microsite that I provided a link to, we have a map of every deployment that we are aware of. I think it's important to say we haven't created kind of any stage gates so everyone can access our tools without telling us of access. You can just download it. So there may well be deployments that may where we will list on the microsite, we will always link to the outputs, and then as much as possible we try and speak to people who have used it to ask what they've done with it. So for example, we mentioned that the emergency communications cluster have taken it on as a tool set, and we know that their teams in Sahel have used it in 2 of their 3 markets and are using it to inform a whole host of their digital inclusion programming. And so we speak to them about what the data has meant and what they've done. So kind of an ongoing engagement for us there, and everything will always be linked to on the microsite.
Really nice. Thank you so much, and congrats on this toolkit. It really is fantastic. Okay, I'm going to jump over to Washikala with my next question. Because Washikala, that was a great kind of deep dive into your organization in particular. What caught my eye is the importance for you about having that healthy portfolio, selecting the right customer, and building good trust in your relationships with them. I was curious about how you develop that sense of trust when you scale up, when you've got thousands and thousands of customers. How do you achieve trust at such a great scale?
Yeah, definitely. Very good question. It's challenging. I won't say that it's easy, but definitely, if it's a combination of different things that we put together. So it starts, as I say, always it starts with the product that you offer. Because if you look in whatever you offer, our service product is the thing that the customer experience on a daily basis. And that, first of all, has to be good, high quality, so that the customer, they can build that trust, because when we go out there and try to get customers, whatever, we just give them like promises, these are the promises we offer you, and to choose us. And definitely when they decide then to buy our product, you have really to deliver those promises in terms of product performance, runtime, and other things. So the product that the customer interacts with on a daily basis has to be good. But then definitely you have to couple this. You have, no matter how good or of high quality product is, sometimes at some point it will get it will have issues. So it's how you respond to these issues when they happen that also is also very important. So as I said, we have also built, our, a network of service centers that are very close to our customers. So it becomes easier for customers, first of all, to access those. Whenever they have an issue, they can just walk a couple of kilometers, and they get to our service centers. And definitely, once they get there, we have been very transparent in terms of the warranties, for example, that we offer. If we said that, it's a 3-year warranty, replacement warranty. So we really adhere to that. Whenever there is an issue and we have to replace a product, definitely we offer and we replace that. So yeah, it's a combination of all of things that make sure that develop that trust and loyalty, and and the customer knows that whenever they have an issue, they will come to us, and definitely.
Lovely. Thank you.
We will address those.
Thank you, Washikala. We're now just 1 minute over time, but there has been a question from Pacific, from BBox, who is asking you about what new products you have planned to be launched across the DRC. As we are at time, Washikala, I wonder if you want to give us just 1 sentence response to that question, and I will also link you both to continue the discussion after the webinar.
Yeah, definitely. You said we really started as a clean energy company. And we have diversified into electric mobility. So I think, as I said, I mentioned in the presentation that we have now piloting
very nice
motorcycles. Yeah.
Well, very glad to hear that innovation continues there. And that brings us to the end of our 3rd alumni webinar today. I just want to say a huge thank you to our very skilled presenters who have given us fantastic talks for their various products and projects. We're very grateful to you for your time, your contributions. And I also want to thank all the alumni who have joined us today. People came in and out at various times, but we have had 8 of our alumni organisations represented in this webinar today, which is fantastic. So I will close there, and I just want to thank you all again for joining us and wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Take care.